Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, but if you dare to be afraid, you dare to feel this, then you see the bridge. I think you described it very nicely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
that's right, sure.
yeah, and then what's next?
Then what's next? Yeah, that's the biggest question, isn't it?
Yeah,
What's
what
next?
do you want to do? How do you see what's your vision?
Well, and I think with what I've been, and you've been a big part of this. What I've been through the last 2 years specifically, I think is really a full. It's a big word, but it basically feels like it, like almost like a live review of the full 40 years human life that I could spend so far on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
That's really how it feels like. And this whole question of like, okay, up until this point, I had. It's really. We have. It's really this review, and now the question. Okay, how do you take this all, and how do you make from this the next step? So it wasn't necessarily this. What is my next step? As some people might say, think about your career, think about this, think about this, think about this. This duality kind of thinking, everything is separate. You need to think about your career, you need to think about your private life, you need to think about your friends, you need to think about your hobbies. There's so many categories that you come up with. And I was standing there, I was seeing it all in one big overarching thing. This is my life. This is it. And now what? Now what? Where were we?
You were telling about your life and your
True. So you had this full life story, life spanning situation where you lived 40 years.
Yeah.
Some people might call it a midlife crisis, but it was much more than that, because you had this challenging upbringing, challenging youth, a lot of changes there. And then coming out as a gay man, getting married, super different jobs, so many changes in moving.
Yeah.
Because I had that with him, with my partner, with my ex-partner, a lot in terms of changing, new jobs. This is not the right thing. This is not the right thing, and so on and so forth. Up until the point that I was asked 10 years ago to come to the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Very good decision. Growing.
Absolutely, I agree.
And so, thank you. Absolutely, I would never change that. Seriously. And then you had this situation where and I think a lot of people would recognize that, who have been through this or are in this situation right now, where the one is growing, and the other one remains or is growing in a different direction. Can be both. But there is at some point such a big split that you do realize you can't live together anymore. The only thing that I wanted, and I luckily could achieve that also through your advice and guidance there, because you've been in a similar situation, how to do this in a manner that you do not have this war that my parents had when they split up, to really have literally a war between families, between sides. You had to choose one or the other, and all the very challenging situation that came with it, and had to do with that, right? So that all was there, quite challenging. You didn't want to repeat the same mistakes as your parents did, and then on top, the very challenging work situation where we have been working in this multinational company by now. It's been growing so big. Yeah. We had at some point then 60,000 employees worldwide. I think was it? So also a very similar situation that people will recognize. There's this big teams, multinational company, super. What's the in word that people use? It's this fast moving enterprises. I think that's one word that people are using to.
A lot of changes.
A lot of changes happening to describe it. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And in there now the situation where we felt, and I definitely felt it, I can't continue like this anymore. And for me personally, I had to agree to myself, be open and honest and valid the fact that I had a burnout. I never said it out loud.
Wow.
And I was never agreeing to it, but I definitely had a burnout. And I think you made me realize this. I actually just crossed already twice before that stage, and now properly had it. So you might even call it as the third one, but this one I really realized it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter really, but just to explain that. And
I think it is important to realize this, because I recognize, you said, by the way, a lot of interesting things, but just to focus on this one, I had exactly the same. In, what was it, June, July 2022, I was sick for the first time. I mean, I've never been sick if I did not physically have somebody really, on my body, which hardly ever happened. So I was hardly ever sick at all during my whole career, 30 years. But then in 2022, I took 4 days off, which is not a lot for burnout, I would say. But I also didn't realize, and I also didn't want to admit at that point in time that I was in a burnout. I thought it was like, oh, I'm, not so happy. My emails are exploding. My productivity is going down. I need to take time to get out of this first, and then everything will get better. But actually not. I did all of that, and everything went better in that respect. I had my work back in order and how I like it. But after a couple of weeks, it was again like completely down the drain. And then I started to realize it's not at all about my emails, my workload. It's just I don't have the energy anymore. So what's happening here? And then, to go more in depth, and in October I had another conversation also with HR, and in November, and I had a mediator there, and still I didn't want to admit. So only the 13th of January of 2023, I could not go back to work any longer. So yeah, I think a lot of people may recognize that they are in this spiral, but you just don't want to admit, because that's not you. That you want to survive, you want to continue, you want to do your best. But those are all signs already, and we have seen them both.
Yes, and this fearful state of, for me it was as well, and now that you say this, fear of letting the others down. That was even worse than fearing not fulfilling my responsibility that I put myself on, where my back is so hurting still when I only think back of it. And now I have this realization that my body told me the whole time. This tinnitus that I developed, things, what you don't want to hear. Jesus, Alex, listen. These kind of things, right? But it's really the fear. It's fear letting the others down. It's fear letting your family down. It's fear letting your partner down, your family down. Fear of not being able to pay. Fear.
Financial,
We created a template in which we've lived so much of fear that we forget to be free in ourselves, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And I was at such point that I could not, this lunch that you mentioned earlier with the colleagues, not ex-colleagues, with the others, I think the decision, as I said already once, was taken in a split second. The decision itself, it doesn't even take a second.
Exactly.
It's just a part of that.
And inside, you know it already. It's just to say it, because I remember as well when I walked out of the office on the 12th of January 2023, on that Thursday afternoon, I knew I was never ever going to come back. That's the feeling, but I didn't dare to say it. I did, because I had all these fears that you were just describing. I had them all as well.
Yes. Yeah. And now, answering then that other part of the question, what are you going to do with it? What now?
Yeah.